Harley Quinn Season 5 was back again on our app screens this week with a brand new episode entitled Bottle My Heart. Now, I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that in mind, let's get right to it, shall we? So then, this new episode picks up more or less exactly from where last week's admittedly lackluster effort left off. You'll remember that Harley had agreed to become Lois Lane's assistant, one part to try and unravel the mystery of the strange skull dream she's been having, as well as actually to get her out of the house and give her something to do. Now, I was initially excited because Lois Lane has admittedly not done a ton this season, despite being around the periphery, and I personally thought it would be fun to see Harley butt heads with another strong-willed, career-oriented woman who also just so happens to be dating someone with the powers of a god. And, yeah, none of that happens. In fact, they kind of nope out of this Harley as an assistant concept just about as quickly as they noped their way out of the Gotham City Sirens concept. And I mean, on paper, it certainly does make a kind of sense that these two probably wouldn't be able to work together for long, especially because Lois has already jumped to the conclusion that the murder of Jason Woodrow must also be related to the threat of Brainiac and the strange skull dreams that a bunch of people in the city are having. Of course, Harley doesn't exactly do herself any favors in this situation by accidentally blurring out the part she played in Jason Woodrow's murder. And I mean, technically she only murdered him the second time after he was already dead. But you try explaining that nuance to a news hound like Lois, it's just not gonna work. Then, just to really add insult to injury, Harley is sure to once again bring up that bit about Lois's neck, only to get punched in the face by Superman's significant other. All of this actually really ends up hitting Harley like a ton of bricks, as now she fears that she has become what she never wanted to be, and that is a housewife, someone who just sits around all day complaining. Also, you know, the whole murder rap thing could be really bad for her and Ivy's future in Metropolis, and because of that, she decides to march all the way down to the planet and force Clayface, who is still masquerading as Perry White, to get Lois to put her integrity behind her and retract the whole damn story. Okay, so is this what the episode is going to be about? A Harley versus Lois Lane in a battle of journalistic ethics? No, because the episode ends up deciding to change gears once again, as we see how news about Harley's murder has actually affected Brainiac's plan to try and perfect Metropolis so he can inevitably bottle the city. Why, in this episode we even learn a little bit more about the deal that Brainiac had struck with Lena Luthor. Apparently, Brainiac was going to bottle the city so Lena could become the undisputed ruler of said bottle city once the job was done, but now the relationship is starting to fall apart, mainly because of Harley. You see, Lena likes Harley, thinks she's funny, and wants to keep her around, while Brainiac understandably thinks she's an agent of unchecked chaos who is keeping him from his ultimate goals of a perfect Metropolis. Hell, I know some fans in my comment section kicked around an actually pretty clever theory about how Lena was purposely keeping Harley running around Metropolis so Brainiac could never complete his plans, but would essentially be forced to do Lena's free labor forever. That kinda didn't end up happening, which is a shame because that would be something of a clever twist. Instead, Brainiac and Lena end up having a major falling out that is capstoned by Lena pointing out that Brainiac's beloved pet Coco has been dead for the last 200 years and he's clearly out of his mind. With their villainous partnership severed too, Lena has no options left but to try and recruit Harley and the others to help her take Brainiac down once and for all. It seems that Lena hoped the Daily Planet and its staff could mobilize the power of the free press in order to wake up the citizenry of Metropolis to Brainiac's evil machinations. And again, I think to myself, okay, is this what the episode is going to be about? Harley having to work alongside Lois and the others to learn how to write a powerful, moving piece of news? But no, again, for the third time, the episode opts to change gears, and instead they decide that the best way to get the people of Metropolis on their side and informed about Brainiac's schemes to bottle the entire city is to actually put on a play, something that Harley very much wants to do as she keeps lamenting her unfulfilled past as the hill in the Jewish summer camp version of The Sound of Music, which I will admit, as far as episode-long runners go, it is actually a pretty funny joke, and it is always nice to be remembered every so often that Harley is actually Jewish. Clayface, of course, casts himself as the lead in this play about Brainiac, but once again recruits Bane to do the actual writing. This is also where the show ends up getting really metatextual when it comes to writing comedy, and especially about the writing of this show itself. You see, Bane and Clayface very much disagree about the direction. Clayface thinks that they should just backload the piece with a bunch of lore and character backstory, while Bane thinks that they should focus more on conflict as it is the essence of drama. Again, these are all just jokes for writing nerds like me. And in the end, ultimately none of it matters, because much to Bane's chagrin, Clayface decides that this Brainiac play should actually be one giant musical. Which might seem like a strange pitch at first until you remember that Alan Tudyk and Kylie Cuoco, on top of being really talented comedic performers, can also sing. Hell, Tudyk has actually made quite a career in his Disney work by not only being able to sing, but sing in his silly cartoon voices too. Also, being a recovering theater kid myself, you can bet I absolutely love getting to see the Harley cast try their best to put on a show, even when that means fighting and arguing backstage. It also means that I cringed a little bit too, in the best way possible, as I was reminded way too much of productions I've actually been involved in. There's also some pretty funny business too, with them casting Andy Serkis from the Planet of the Apes movies to play Coco on stage, only for Frank the Plant to eat him before showtime, meaning that Frank has to actually play the part himself. The show is one giant steaming pile of crap, as you might have guessed, because hey, it's a Clayface joint, once again the joke being that he can literally make himself look like anyone. But instead he decides to wear an ill-fitting costume to be Brainiac. He even does a little light rapping too, in what I can only imagine is a Hamilton joke. Lena positively hates the show because she believes that Clayface and the others have completely mangled the message she was trying to get across to the people of Metropolis, yet surprisingly the people themselves freaking love the show. And it's right around here in the tail part of the episode things end up getting really weird. You see, Brainiac actually starts watching the show, and it actually ends up breaking through his delusions, forcing him to come to terms with the fact that his only friend Coco, the last vestige of his home planet, really truly is dead, right around the time that Clayface gets his big emotional moment on screen. I mean, that's pretty clever in and of itself, but it's what happens next that's the strange part. You see, Brainiac completely breaks the fourth wall and addresses the audience directly. Which, you know, I'm surprised it took them 5 whole seasons to do this in a show that's basically done anything for a laugh since day one. It's also one of those things they should probably be pretty careful with, because once you start breaking the fourth wall, if you don't do it carefully, you might just end up jumping the shark. In another surprising twist, the episode ends up ending on a very dour note, which is surprising considering that it was nothing but shenanigans up until now. You see, a vengeful Brainiac, enraged by the death of Coco, decides to take out his anger on Ivy and Harley by killing Frank the Plant, in a scene that I personally felt ended up hitting way harder given the fact that we actually got Frank the Plant's origin story earlier on in the season. JB Smoove, I don't think, gets enough credit for what he brings to Frank the Plant as a performer, and if this really was his last scene, then I think he ended on a very high note. And so that was Bottle My Heart, everyone, an episode that ended up being maybe one of the strangest of the entire season. Not bad, but weird. It takes forever to get started. Structurally, it's a mess with about 3 or 4 different false starts here and there, but when the ball does actually get rolling, there are some funny jokes. Yeah, it feels like they threw all the jokes at the wall to see what stuck, and more stuck than didn't. It just feels a little slapdash. It also feels like they burned through several ideas that might have been more interesting to explore, like what if Harley actually did become Lois's assistant? Hey, what was the relationship between Lena and Brainiac like before they blew it up? I guess we'll never know now, but for what it's worth, they did actually end up upping the ante here right at the very end, and it has me interested to see where the show is going to go from here. As now Harley and Ivy actually have a reason to stick behind in Metropolis and defend it, a deeply personal one no less. But that'll just about do it for me for another week, everyone. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to drop a comment. It helps me in this crazy YouTube algorithm game. If you want to know when the brand new Harley video is coming out, be sure to follow me on all social media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Threads, I'm on Blue Sky. You can find me anywhere. So until we meet again, I've been Cape Joel. Thank you and goodbye.